Well, hello, lovely people. Today's devotional is for Wednesday, August the 5th, and we are talking more about the breastplate of righteousness versus self-righteousness. And so today, as our activation, we are going to be journaling. So if you have a journal, a piece of paper, and a pen, something like that, you can grab those things. We're going to dive into the breastplate and what it's used for and kind of its function. So the breastplate for a soldier took a process. So Matt was talking about that on Sunday. It was a process of actually forming that breastplate to each individual soldier so that it fit their bodies uniquely and perfectly. And so when they would put that breastplate on, it fit them. And it took a process to get to the point where it fit them perfectly. And so it was molded to be unique to them for their protection. On the other hand, self-protection in Isaiah 64:6, it talks about how sin contaminates us and how our self-righteous acts are like filthy rags. And so those two pictures that are being painted between the breastplate of righteousness versus the dirty rags of self-righteousness. If you were on a battlefield and you had that breastplate of righteousness on, it's going to protect you. It's going to it's molded to your body to fit you exactly how it needs to be fitted to you. Whereas the dirty rags, if you take off that breastplate of righteousness and you put on those rags, they're not going to protect you from the arrows and the attacks from the enemy that are coming at you. You're going to be left wounded. And there's some vital organs underneath that breastplate that need to be protected. And that's why that breastplate was there. And so the organs that needed to be protected were your lungs, your heart, your digestive tract, and your purifying organs. And so in the spiritual sense, since we're walking through spiritual warfare, each one of those things I feel like can be linked to just spiritual aspects of our lives that can move into self-protection. So I'm going to go through each one of those, and I'm going to show just a couple examples of what self-protection might look like, but you need to find your own language for this. Even though I'm giving you some examples, this might not be exactly where God is leading you. So just be in prayer about what it is that God is highlighting to you in this. So first, your heart, which can be your passions, your desires, your longings, and your will. Self-protection might look like holding on to your plans instead of letting go. It might look like not being willing to surrender because of fear that God is going to take away something that you're longing for. For your lungs, I see that as a reset, a relaxation, your enjoyment in life, the breathing in and the breathing out of life around you. Self-protection might look like trying to control my environment and my circumstances. It also might look like living so busy that you don't have time to either deal with the healing process that God has you in, or it might look like not having the time to delight in His creation that He's given to you. Your digestive tract I see as being kind of the hunger and the goals and the drive that you have. It also actually has an emotional component to it. So self-protection might look like having a list of goals and just really feel bad about yourself and let that guilt build up when you don't meet those goals and those things that you've set out for yourself. It also might be that you have creature comforts that are substitutes for connection with God. So instead of going to God, you're going to these things that are your comforts. It also looks like emotions being scary, so you try not to feel those emotions. You don't let those emotions come up to be a guide for your life. Instead, you try to cut them off. And then your purifying organs, I feel like they represent your purity, perspective and clarity in life, and your energy. So self-protection can kind of look like having a list of do's and don'ts that you rigidly stick to. It also looks like not being willing to see from another person's perspective. I also want to hit on one thing that just the fact that we have a lot of intercessors in our church, and I feel like sometimes our ministerial roles can get out of alignment in little ways. So I just wanted to point out that for intercessors, self-righteousness might look like seeing the needs of the world and feeling like if you don't pray, God won't act. And so you're really taking on the burden of the world and feeling like if you don't pray, then God's not going to do something about those needs in the world. It also might look like you might carry the burdens of others without giving them to God. So you're actually walking around carrying other people's burdens and not letting God carry them for those people. It also might look like you praying for sick people, and it might feel like a personal failure if they don't get well. So I just wanted to point those things out just because we have a lot of intercessors in our church. But it can also, self-righteousness can actually look like different things for even the evangelist, the pastor, and the prophets in our church too. So if you feel like you are more called to one of those other things, take some time to ask God what that self-righteousness might look like in those areas. He has given us the breastplate of righteousness so that we don't have to walk around in those self-righteous ways any longer. We can take that filthy rag and we can throw it in the garbage, and we can put on that breastplate of righteousness. And it's just as easy as, just like Abby had said, just taking that one step back to the table and sitting down in the rest of God's salvation and just his love. So righteousness, when we have that breastplate of righteousness, what it's going to look like is having an open hand of surrender. It's going to be that continuous yes to Jesus and the Holy Spirit and obedience to his word. It's going to look like trust. It's going to look like generosity. It's going to look like delighting in God and enjoying and delighting others. It's going to look like laughing and smiling and having a grateful and thankful heart. It's going to look like having boundaries. It's going to look like recognizing that emotions are good and can help you see where you're out of alignment. It also is going to look like being okay with failure, because God is a forgiving God, and even when you fail, he is going to bring you back to that place of a seat at the table. Because forgiveness is just taking that one step back to the table. Since I already mentioned intercessors, I'm going to mention you again. God carries others' burdens better than you can, and he knows exactly what they need. So let go and trust, and that's what righteousness really looks like. It's just letting go and trusting that God is in control. He knows the needs of the world better than you do, and he can carry those burdens so much better than you can. Next, I want to just get into the activation time, and I have 3 questions that you can be asking Holy Spirit about. So the first question is, Holy Spirit, where have I tried to cover myself with the rags of self-righteousness instead of relying on your breastplate of righteousness? Again, Holy Spirit, where have I tried to cover myself with the rags of self-righteousness instead of relying on your breastplate of righteousness? Second question, Holy Spirit, what lies have I believed that have led me to protect myself with self-righteousness instead of believing that I am covered by your righteousness? Again, Holy Spirit, what lies have I believed that have led me to protect myself with self-righteousness instead of believing that I am covered by your righteousness? And number 3, what revelation would you like to show me about your righteousness that covers me? What revelation would you like to show me about your righteousness that covers me? If any of that felt heavy or burdensome, I just want you to just look into the eyes of Jesus. Take some time to shake it off, because he wants to cover you in his love, and he doesn't want you to be covered in shame or guilt or condemnation. He wants you to take those things and he wants you to give those feelings of shame and guilt and condemnation to him. But if you felt that conviction from the Holy Spirit that you had places where you were trying to cover yourself in rags instead of that breastplate of righteousness, I want you just to take that rag, and I want you to throw it in the trash can, and I want you to see yourself as covered in that breastplate of righteousness again. And I love each and every one of you, and I pray that the rest of your week will be blessed. Thank you.